While I've got the driver's seat out of this L400 V6 gasser, Series 2, I'm just going to go through and document what we're looking at for wiring underneath this seat, since it's pretty easy to access by just yanking out these 4 bolts. Wiring comes in here through just this big wiring loom, which just goes straight up to the right kick panel. There's a bunch of different stuff embedded underneath the seat. There was a module for controlling the auto step, and that's already been deleted, but that's what this connector's for. And some of that wiring goes forward to the switch in your dash for disabling or enabling auto step. There's also wiring for the auto step, which dives underneath through this connector. And that goes to the auto step, obviously, which I delete off of every van. We also have a slightly smaller connector. This is for the fuel tank and the rear condenser fan, which is that unit that hangs just underneath the passenger seat. The largest wires on here, this blue wire with the yellow stripe, and the other ground, that's for the fan. And then we have a black wire with a blue stripe, and that is for the in-tank fuel pump. And there's also a mid-size ground wire, which is used as a common ground for the fuel tank. There's a couple smaller yellowish wires for the fuel sender. Finally, this connector has 4 wires in it, and that is for our rear ABS sensors. Underneath of this plate here, we have a G sensor hanging upside down on these bolts right here. That G sensor, confusingly, is actually for the ABS module. I always assumed that was for SRS, but it is not. And as well, we have a seat belt plug, which detects if the driver has plugged in a seat belt or not. And we also have a switch which will detect if your parking brake is on. Now, the wires that head to the back here, most of this loom is for our rear HVAC, which I've deleted from this van. There's also 5 wires which are going to the remote receiver unit for the key fobs for remote locking. As well, we have 2 wires that go to this switch in the door. Keep in mind that this switch is a little bit complicated. It actually has 2 switches built into it, and it's relying on getting a ground to the frame through just through this screw right here. So if it loses that ground, or either of those switches fail, then you can get some weird behavior with central locking and stuff. So that's what we have underneath the driver's seat. Series 2 L400 V6.